Before you tonight, we have a rezone proposal at 908 White Avenue. And just to familiarize yourself with the subject property, it's in the center of your screen, outlined in red and white. Basically, approximately 1 acre in size, has frontage on White Avenue. Surrounding the subject property are various single-family and two-family dwellings, predominantly two-family dwellings located on Johnson Street. You also have various commercial services to the south, Spence Hardware, building supply store, bank there at the corner of Blaine and White Avenue, Village Strip Mall, as well as a McDonald's restaurant and a Tesoro gas station. Subject property also has Paradise Creek running northwest through the northeast corner of the property. Basically, those yellow lines represent the floodway on your screen. The blue lines would represent the 100-year floodplain, and then you have the 500-year floodplain delineated in green. Current land use designation is neighborhood conservation for the subject property, as well as to the west, to the north, and to the east. You have auto urban commercial. Predominantly the commercial services to the south would be that designation. You also have parks and open space with Lions Park to the east of Blaine. You also have Paradise Path, which is delineated as parks and open space as well. Just a couple excerpts from the comprehensive plan. Those neighborhood conservation designations are intended to preserve the character of many of the city's existing built residential neighborhoods. Within areas designated neighborhood conservation, neighborhood-specific zoning districts would be established that would describe prevailing lot sizes, permitted uses, and still allow for the improvement and expansion of existing development. White Avenue, that borders the subject property, is designated as a minor arterial within the thoroughfare plan. Currently has a 90-foot right-of-way width, and there's intermittent curb gutter sidewalks on the south side of the street. North side of the street does not currently contain any curb gutter sidewalks. Current zoning designation for the area, it's within the medium density residential designation, as well as the residential properties to the west, north, and the east. To the south, all those commercial properties are designated as motor business. And the rezone before you tonight is basically to rezone the property to residential office. The properties surrounding will remain R3, medium density residential, and you also have the commercial designation of motor business, which will remain the same to the south as well. When staff's taking a look at whether or not a certain zoning designation would fit within an area, basically, the first thing to look at would be the intent of that zoning district. And so here we have the residential office zone, as described as a moderately intensive zone, including both offices and high-density housing. Serves as a transitional zoning district between residential zoning districts and commercial or industrial zoning districts. And then it's appropriately applied in the following circumstances. And number one, it's on the perimeter of commercial and industrial districts where they abut residential land uses. So that would meet criteria number one. You have those commercial properties to the south, serving as a transition to the residential properties to the west, north, and the east. And where transportation network use is greater than desirable for lower density residential uses, generally you don't have a minor arterial with frontage on a subject property that would be zoned residential office. Where landforms create sites which are reasonably accessible by transportation systems and which are buffered from nearby residential areas. So the landform in this case would be Paradise Creek, flowing northwest in that northeast corner of the property, would serve as a buffer against the adjacent residential uses across Paradise Creek on Johnson Street as well as Kenneth. The fourth criteria would be where development patterns in a neighborhood will allow development of moderate intensity to occur without producing adverse visual impact or harm to the transportation network. Once again, you have minor arterial, which is White Avenue, which will not have any type of harm to the transportation network. Just to go through the allowed uses within the RO zone, basically single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, twin homes, townhouses, as well as multifamily dwellings. The RO zone also allows for professional office uses, and so with an R4 zone, you generally have a cap on professional office, which would be 2,000 square feet. The distinction between the R4 and the RO is the RO does not have that cap. We allow up to any size professional office within that zone. The Planning and Zoning Commission did conduct a public hearing on April 10th, 2013, and recommended approval of the proposed rezone to City Council with no conditions. And with that, staff's recommendation before you tonight is that the council conduct a public hearing upon the proposed rezone, and upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the rezone ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary. I'd certainly be able to try to answer any questions that you might have on this.
Thank you, Mike. Well done, as always. Looks like Wayne has a question.
Well, Mike, the conditions certainly support residential office zone, but my concern is, tell me how this is not spot zoning.
Well, it's illegal for an illegal spot zone, but spot zoning necessarily is not illegal. So what we'd take a look at is basically the intent of the zoning district, whether it's compatible with the surrounding area. If it's an illegal spot zone, it would be introducing uses that are inconsistent or incompatible with that surrounding area. And so in this case, the RO zone would provide a transition between the motor business zone to the south and the residential zones to the west, north, and the east, medium density residential. Wouldn't introduce any uses that aren't already occurring within that area. And so, you know, it'd still be consistent with a comprehensive plan. And that's basically, you know, the reason it's not a spot zone.
Did that answer your question, Wayne?
Not really.
All right.
I realize it's not an illegal spot zone, but it's still a spot zone. Would it not make more sense to take that entire area on the north side of White Avenue and rezone that all to RO? Because RO still allows the current development that's there, which is all apartments. And they could rebuild in the same configuration even as in an RO zone. That is spot zoning. It conforms to the use. Agreed.
Well, it's, you know, when you're looking at the criteria for a zone change, you know, it'd be a logical and orderly zoning configuration in the area, and it's not an illegal spot zone. So it says spot zone, it just refers to a legal spot zone. We had taken a look at possibly looking at rezoning RO for, you know, the north side of the street there. It's not conducive to the amount of vehicular traffic that would come with an RO zone. So you have Hanson Avenue, which is more of a vertical development pattern there with a cul-de-sac at the end of it. Pretty much smaller lot sizes. And you also have various flagpole lots that would be insufficient for large amounts of vehicular access that would generally come with an RO zone and when you're introducing professional office type uses. With this current property, you have a large, it's already developed as an institutional use. You have a large parking lot which serves that use. You have an existing building. So it'd be easy for that property to transition, but you look at the property to the east, which is largely encumbered by the floodplain, and you have some of the other properties north of White Avenue that are also largely encumbered by the floodway and the floodplain, and it's really difficult to develop within the floodway. You know, that north half of this property, without the proper no-rise certification and engineering documents, you wouldn't be able to build on that portion of the property. And so we feel that it would be the right thing to do is just basically to leave it the medium density residential R3 zone, and then this property, even though it is a single property, our view is that it would not be an illegal spot zone.
I agree that it's not illegal. I think it's a stretch, and I'm going to support it.
Okay, well, you don't want to say that. We have a public hearing coming up.
At this point.
At this point.
You're inclined.
Yeah. But your question about was it spot zoning was a legitimate
Sue,
question.
I think you would agree with me. This is spot zoning, is it not?
Okay, and I heard some rattling over here, and I don't know if that was just like the microphone falling off the table, or Bill, were you intending to speak?
I'm out of order. That's okay. I'm out of order. Carry
Bill,
on.
please, did you want to say
If I might,
something?
and I don't know if we want
Please.
to talk about this after you've had the hearing and during the council's deliberation, but I did have some comments further on that question. So I'd be happy to wait till after the hearing and when the council's in their deliberation stage.
Okay. Other questions for
Bill was
staff?
just
that are
prepared to
not-
help Mike out, and Mike didn't need any help.
All right, very good.
Nope.
No more questions for staff before we open the public hearing. Okay, thank you, Mike, appreciate that.